Hey, kid, you may have studied at many schools, but however much you've learned, I'm sure you have only just managed to get the basic essentials.
Hey guys, what's up? Yeah, got a video out before the end of the month. I've been wanting to get something out before the end of the month. Finally, I got something out before the end of the month, so let's get on with it. And this is actually a bit of an addendum to the video I did called, why they do that, which is a little bit of a series that I wanted to do on Chinese martial arts movements, partially because I've been wanting to do this for some time, explaining why they do what they do, and also partially because many of you guys have been asking me and even saying that I should do something on explaining why they do what they do. Now, originally what I was planning on doing after that first one was just to jump right into doing forms and enjoying why they do it. But I realized after a few comments that I got on my last video, as well as reflecting on what it was that I was actually trying to convey, that I need to get some other stuff out the way first before we can just jump right into forms and showing like, well, this is what this is doing and this is what that is doing and so on. There's still a few basic things we need to get out of the way. And one of these things that we really need to clear up, and I really need to explain, is just how much information can be jammed into one movement. I find that it can be pretty tough to convey to someone who's more versed into Western martial arts or in a Western way of thinking just how much is conveyed in a typical practiced martial movement when you start dealing with Asian systems, particularly the Chinese ones. When you practice a movement, you practice a certain technique, you aren't necessarily just practicing what you see. It's more that you're trying to practice the general motion to get the muscle memory down while keeping the core concept in your head, but making that core concept malleable enough to transform into different techniques depending on the situation. I'm not sure if that made much sense to you guys, but that's what I'm going to try to explain with the one movement that we're going to be discussing that you can see in the title right there, namely the cat stance or the false stance or whatever. Because that's one of the stances that I noticed a lot of people are like, you know what, that doesn't seem practical. I got to explain a few things. Let's take a typical Western martial art like boxing, okay? When you're practicing basic techniques there, a jab is a jab, okay? An uppercut's an uppercut. Like, what you see is what you get. They give you basic building blocks, you practice them, and then you put them together, in a mix of movements and make your own style out of it. And that's nothing wrong with that system. In fact, I think there's a pretty easy way to train somebody quickly on how to fight with what they got. In fact, even the Chinese realized that, which is why for a while they started teaching boxing, to their students, during the years of the Republican era. Not many people know that, but it's true. But if you don't believe me, look at a Sanshu match and you will see elements of boxing in it. I mean, you'll see elements of Kung Fu in it too, but there's boxing in it. There's a reason. It's a very easy way to convey stuff. The Chinese way of doing things, on the other hand, at least the traditional Chinese way of training people in martial arts, a kick isn't necessarily just a kick, or a stance isn't necessarily just a stance, meaning it isn't what you're seeing necessarily. It isn't exactly what it is that you see. It's the movement that you're drilling into yourself, but then you're supposed to derive different things in that movement. This was their way of trying to find out, like, how are we going to, remember, martial arts originally was used for war. This whole personal hobby way that we do it these days, that's not what it was done. That's not the reason why you practiced it back then. I mean, I'm sure more among the aristocrats or people with a lot of time and money in their hands back then. And there are examples of this in Chinese martial arts history, guys who they could spend all day just practicing stuff and writing manuals because it was fun for them. But for the most part, most people took this stuff up not because it was fun, but because it was necessary. And if you're somebody trying to drill a group of people real quick, to be combat ready, because remember, they did this for war. They did this for protection. Well, how are you going to, you got a whole lot of different techniques and a whole lot of different weapons and a whole lot of different ways to defend and attack. How are you going to drill all this information into these people in a short amount of time? There's different ways to go about it. And the way they did it was to try to take basic movements and drill those basic movements in there and then branch off from there going, this basic movement, you can see this in several different movements. They all share the same basic structure, but there's so much in it. So they crammed information in there. And I've noticed that the more recent the martial art, the more you see this. Like if you look at the more ancient ones, then it looks a little bit more like, like there's a whole bunch of different techniques. Learn all these damn techniques and then you'll be good. But then as you see the more so-called sophisticated ones, you start seeing more of an emphasis on the movement rather than the technique, and the technique will be derived from the movement. Add to the fact that you got teachers who are also trying to hide their techniques because they don't want people to just look at them and oh, I know his style now, for a variety of reasons. And it gets trickier. Like trying to be able to derive a movement. Like, how is that practical? Where's the technique in there? You got this kind of cramming stuff into one movement, and then at the same time you got them like trying to hide their techniques so that other people don't know what it is that they're practicing. And then to make matters even worse, their demonstrations. A lot of people these days are practicing 2-man or 3-man forms or whatever, and if you think you're seeing real technique there, and it's just a performance, it's just a show, you're not actually seeing the real technique. And people these days are practicing it as if there is real technique. It just doesn't help when you're trying to later on in modern times show people the real practical usage in the movement, which leads me to the cat stance. Now, I have a clip that I'm about to show where I show that stance and I try to explain, what we're actually practicing. I know in the earlier video I stated certain things and they're true, but I kind of lied a little bit for the sake of simplicity, which teachers tend to do anyway. I'm not a teacher, by the way. This is not an instructional video, so don't take that out of context what I just said about this, but this is what they do. They give you basic stuff and they tell you a lie kind of at first because you're not ready for the full sophistication yet, which is true. So, for instance, when I said that, okay, when you go into cat stance, this is basically the retreat. That's, you're condensing yourself in the defensive movement and you're kind of stepping back. That's true. More or less. But you can go forward with it too. And you can move to the side with it too. It's not just a retreating motion. You can step forward with it. You can make it offensive. But generally it's used to contract your body and retreat. You're condensing, and it can be a kick, as I stated before. But how do you perform that kick in real life? This is where I know some confusion was lying, both in this and, by the way, that one, like the Golden Rooster stance as well, where some people say, well, that's heavily telegraphed. Not really. Because no one's going to kick the way that I should. You know what? I'm going to go right into the clip, and I'm going to try to explain it, and hopefully by the end you will see what it is that I'm trying to convey, and maybe this will make a little bit more sense. And the one thing I must throw in at the end, and I am going to be repeating this line a lot, you can't look at this stuff with a Western lens too much. This is the tough thing about me trying to explain some of this stuff. It's like translating a language. Not everything is going to be easily conveyed when you're converting things from one language to another. Certain concepts are harder to explain in a different language. You got to use different words or different phrases. And sometimes you can't really come up with a perfect one-to-one match. Sometimes you got to approximate. Sometimes you just got to come up with something that you hope conveys the idea because there isn't an exact translation in the language you're trying to bring it into. So you just got to come up with some phrase or certain wordings and hope that the image that pops up in someone's head points to what you're trying to tell them. That's kind of the same thing here. And I'm trying to do my best to make this as clear as possible. And it doesn't help that it's not like I'm an expert or anything either. But I'm hoping by the end of this will make some sense. Anyway, I burnt up too much time already. It's like 9 minutes. Let me get into this, and hopefully by the end, it will make sense. Okay, so, cat stance. This stance right here that you saw in my other video. Looks pretty simple, right? Just, like I said before, it's a defensive retreating motion with the weight all in the back leg and the front leg light. And as you can see, you step back in it. I said that's the basic premise. You step back and you contract yourself. It's a retreating defensive motion. See, here's another version of it. A basic parry, stepping back, condensing, retreating. You even got this one. basic block, but you're kind of, condensing yourself, retreating a little bit. Again, that kind of backwards motion. But that's not the whole story. You can go forwards. Let's look at this again. It's kind of a defensive motion, yeah, but notice I stepped forward. Look, it's the same stance. Here we go again, moving forwards. Basic parry or defensive motion. You could make that offensive, but we're moving forwards with it. Stepping forward, putting the weight in the back leg, but the front leg is light. And we can go to the side too, so you can see. Sidestepping. So, let me put the sword away a little bit so we can go into the movement just a little bit more clearly here. But as you can see already, we're getting different variations. So let's put the sword away, and let's really break that down. So, here's the basic motion. And notice when I said kick, you can kick with that front leg. See? Just snap it forward. And you got more than one kick, don't we? You got a side kick there. You don't have to just do a front kick. You got, side kicks, you got your front kicks, but notice how you kick. You don't just, that and that. That's two-step motion. That's telegraphing. You just kick, don't you? Just snap it out. Boom. You just kick. You don't go 1-2. It's not adult 2 stages. Just bam, and you kick. So what's with the false stance? Going like that. Well, it's shorthand. Notice how you kick. You put all your weight in your back leg, and then you lift the foot. See, you just boom. The false stance is doing the same thing. You're just not lifting it all the way. It's shorthand. See, you just boom. When you kick, you just go into your back leg and you just pop. If we break down what a kick is, boom, you just snap into it. But when you go into the false stance, you're generally doing the same thing. You're just not letting the foot go that far. So it's shorthand. It's basically the Chinese way of saying, hey, this is basically a kick you're doing. But we don't want you to have to do the whole thing because there's a whole many different kicks you can do here. See what I mean? This is what I mean by code, translating the code of a form. Boom. And by the way, it can go low. It doesn't have to go high like I just showed. So, boom. Tripping kick. See? And you can sweep them. Boom. See that? Classic Chinese motion. Hey, look. We're right into the false stance. We're right into the cat stance, aren't we? Same thing. So, let's put the sword back in our hands again to really put this into context now, since this was primarily showing movements with the sword. Now that we know that this stance can do a whole lot of different kicks, while doing a defensive sword motion, and you just pop it out, you don't do it 2-stage, now you see all the different ways that we can actually employ it in a combat situation, like a low line kick while parrying, boom, low line kick while doing whatever you are going to do with the sword. And again, that basic classic motion I did, boom, snap, boom. See how fast that was? Like, you're not going to go 1, 2, no. That's telegraphing. You're going to get killed. You just bam, bam. See? The kick helps to facilitate the sword motion, and you're kicking low. So you don't have to necessarily kick high. And this pulling back and then snapping forward immediately. Defensive. The foot helps aid the motion. You can hit the person's hand, or you can kick them low, and then boom, stab. See? So this is just one example of what I mean by how versatile the motion is and how much information can be conveyed in one stance. It's more than what you're just seeing, and it's practiced in a different way, than it's used. Okay, so hopefully by now you're kind of getting the point that I was trying to mention, how one basic movement is actually a bunch of movements, and that the way you're practicing it isn't exactly the way you're actually going to be using it. I do need to do a video on the difference between practicing an art and actually doing the art, and then even the different levels of actually performing the art in a combat situation, because even then there's different layers. But when you practice, I know people say that you must make your practice as realistic as possible, and that is true to a certain extent. But when you're first starting out, you're not ready for that. So you're going to be doing it in a framework that is made not necessarily to make you combat ready immediately, but to form your body the right way so that you can perform it correctly later. I hope that makes sense. And think of writing. When you were first a kid learning how to write the alphabet, you were writing on paper with really huge lines with little dots in the middle. That's not how we write in real life. You got much smaller lines that you got to write in, and there's no little dotted line to help you form the letters right. and you're not tracing on a letter to get the letter right anymore. You got to do it yourself. And sometimes you don't even have lined paper. You just got to write whatever it is you're writing on a blank sheet of paper. But you still better make that line straight if you want to be considered somebody who knows how to write properly or has decent handwriting. You know, not too sloppy for people not to read. And I haven't even gotten to cursive yet. You see what I mean? Like the beginning of you learning to write is not exactly the same as actually writing. And I haven't even gone into what you're writing. That's a whole different thing. Like, are you a novelist? Are you a journalist? Or are you just jotting something down for your grocery list? Either way, that same different level of stuff, same with martial arts. Going on a tangent. I hope you get the idea, though. There's a lot crammed into a movement. And you're trying to get your body to go into the muscle memory. And then from there, you're going to go into like actually practicing the move. And then the way you actually do the movement is going to be a bit different than the way you practice it. The Chinese like to, like I said in the clip, they like to do a lot of shorthand for things. So, yeah, it's like when you go into the cat stance, yeah, you can kick from here. You do realize how many different types of kicks there are, right? Like I said, low line kicks, high line kicks, tripping kicks, bumping kicks. But they all come from that same basic structure. Well, we don't got time to like show them all the different ways that you can kick from the sword. So let's just go into the basic shorthand of, and from here you can kick. What kick you use depends on the situation. Hopefully you'll be smart enough to figure it out and not get dead. That's what they're doing. Okay? So, I hope that made sense. And I hope you guys got, something out of this. So, before I go, I was just about to say to catch you guys later, but no. Before I forget. I'm recording this on the 28th. In 2 days, it's going to be my birthday. I'll be 40 years old. Yeesh. Can't believe I'm that old. Not really old, but it's old. And I got an early birthday present. I wasn't really expecting much. I don't really get that much on my birthdays, guys. My birthdays tend to be just days, and mine falls on a Tuesday where I'm going to be working. Yeah. So imagine my surprise when I actually got a birthday gift, a really good one, a couple of days ago. Blew me away. I got a package in the mail, a long box, so I guess it's a sword, but I didn't think it was for me. Long story short, sometimes I have to because of shipping costs for certain people, for certain friends of mine, I tend to okay, ship it to me, and then I'll ship it out, and that way you don't got to worry about, I'll do it for them. Like it's a favor for a friend or something. So at first I didn't think it was for me until I took a really good look at the stuff where it says the address, and I realized, hey, this is for me. And it was sent, wait a minute, Skull and Kara sent this to me? What the, wow. So I opened it up, and I have to apologize because normally when stuff like this comes in, people do unboxings. Hey, I got something, let's unbox it. It's fun to share with people. Hey, I wonder what this is. Oh my God, it's cool. And everybody sees the reaction, and it's cool. And because I don't generally do unboxing videos, and the reason why I don't do unboxing videos is because I rarely get anything. So it didn't occur to me to do an unboxing video. So unfortunately, the thing's already open, guys. I'm really sorry that I couldn't share that with you. But let me just tell you that I was very, very surprised and very happy to see what I got, because I was not expecting this at all. So, let me pull it out. This is what I got as a birthday present from Skallagrim and Kara. Those of you who watch their videos, who watch Skull's videos, know what this sword is. This is that Ronin Tang Dynasty sword, Tang Dynasty Dao, that he reviewed. Some people call it Tang Dynasty Katana, but it's Tang Dynasty Dao. I had mentioned to them that I am really, interested in Tang Dynasty swords, especially the Dao, because those are the earliest versions you can see of, the earliest versions of a Dao actually are the Han Dao. But the Tang Dynasty Dao is when you really start beginning to see it take shape, and this is basically the ancestor of, it's popularly known as this is basically what, inspired the Japanese katana. And you can definitely see it with this design right here, especially when we pull the blade out. And yeah, you can see the basic shape here. right down to the tip. You can see that this helped to influence what would be known as the Japanese katana later on. Of course, the guard here is definitely not the same, but the collar, the blade, the general blade shape, it's not exactly the same, but you know what I mean. It's there. The difference being, though, I mean, I haven't seen too many historical examples of the Tang Dao actually being curved. I'm sure there's probably some examples. I just haven't really seen them. I've usually seen them straight. And those are the ones I was really interested in because they're like the proto version. But a curved version is definitely interesting to me too. Especially since it will be easier for me to practice more contemporary Dao basics with these, which is what I'm planning on doing with this. I know the Dian is basically my weapon. The Dao is not really my weapon, but I am interested enough in the Dao to practice some basics. Some basics. I know some of you guys have been asking me, you got anything you can show on Dao techniques? I can't really because I don't know that much about it. My training is a little incomplete in that sense. Like normally before you even get to the Dian, you start with the Dao. My training didn't really go that way for a lot of reasons. Sorry, but I do know a few little basics with these, and I'm planning on strengthening those basics with this because the weight I think it's pretty much right. The handle, of course, is made for two hands, but I'm still gonna practice one-handed basic Dao wrapping and cuts with it. So yeah, I plan on doing a review of this, even though I know Skull has already reviewed this exact sword. I would like to do one simply because I would like to give my own impressions. It's kind of like it's going to be my way of thanking him. Like this is already my way of thanking him, and I thanked him personally. I thanked him in another, Patreon exclusive video, and this is my also thank you. But I would like to do a review of this to kind of give my perspective as someone who practices Chinese stuff, since this is a Chinese weapon, basically. I think having my a perspective of someone who knows a bit about that particular type of martial art will help. It will give something of, because remember he's from more of the Western type tradition, and I'm from more the Chinese type tradition. So I think having that perspective will kind of give you guys a little bit more of a sense of what this blade is about and what to expect from it. So yeah, expect that at some point. With all how busy I am, I don't know how soon I'll be able to get it out, but I'm going to try to get that out pretty quick. Among other things. Again, this dragged on for a bit. Look at this, 9 minutes. I'm sorry that these videos are so long for the short amount of information that I plan to give, but hope you guys enjoyed it. And once again, thank you, Skull and Kara, very much for this gift. I really appreciate it. It's already being put to use. And I'll catch you guys later. Take care.
Kung Fu to survive must now be taught to more young men.